Hey yo.
Hi,
Hello.
Marcus. Hello,
I
hello.
can't hear you, so I don't
You
know what
can't
that
hear
is.
me. My
And you're
goodness.
probably playing through to the audience.
I
So
am like last time. That's odd,
while
isn't
we
it?
get that checked out again,
Yeah.
I want to welcome the audience, those who are watching the recording, to Coming Home to Who You Are with Mark and Marcus Van den Einden.
Am I back?
You're back, but I hear me echoing.
And
And
now?
now I don't hear me echoing, and I hear you and sometimes the birds. So
Okay. Well, the birds are nice.
always, always.
I don't mind bringing in the birds
Mark, the
as
only
long as they
difference
don't
between
overpower my voice, right?
no, 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 no. They would be a pleasant compliment.
All right.
I was gonna say the only difference between me and you is us. It's a nice little pun I always use with people named Mark. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing really well, thank you. I'm just I'm just putting a quick post out there on LinkedIn that we are live, and yeah, hopefully some people see this and decide to join us today. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yes, we. I'm looking forward to that meeting that we had to not have earlier this week, just because some other circumstances arose. But if anybody's watching and they're interested to join the conversation, we're also going to be sending out invitations for people to join. Um, and what is this conversation about? Mark, would you let us know? What are we talking about?
Well, we're
Or
on chapter six. Yeah, we're on chapter 16. So 16 of 24.
oh no, no, I meant in
Um,
the larger picture,
oh, the larger picture. Okay, so what is this whole thing about? The big one,
the big
the
one,
big
the big
why.
why.
Well, we have this collaboration book writing project between Marcus and myself that we've been working on for the last year and a half. It's called Coming Home to Who You Are, Education Re-Enlightened. And it is the story of three friends who are attending university in a Swiss university here in Zurich. And they are feeling I guess, the ends of the status quo of education, right? They're feeling that somehow the way that, yeah, the courses are brought to life are no longer meeting their needs as students and as learners. And they decide that they can be part of the solution and create opportunities for also deeper human conversations, deeper and meaningful conversations amongst themselves, amongst other students, so that they nurture that inner core and that they pay attention to the inner development just as they are building their hard skills going forward. And there's something about today in the world we live in today with all the changes and technology and AI and changing ways of thinking about careers and all of that uncertainty and unpredictability, where I think, yeah, we're just sensing a lot of need and readiness and desire to pay more attention to the human core and who we are at the essence and why are we here and to nurture that and to allow that to come through. So this is a story that tells a new narrative of how education could look like.
It's a reimagining. Yeah,
Yeah,
you know.
reimagined. And we have,
Mhm.
yeah, I'll just maybe mention the website. So there's a website, beingatfullpotential.com/coming home. And there you can watch all the previous episodes that we've done. And this is the 16th now. We do these every Friday afternoon. And you can also, um, apply for electronic version of the book if you would like to read the current edit. And we're working on the final edit, which will be released in September.
Yes, yes, yes. There, I was mentioning there's a book by Jane McGonigal. Kelly McGonigal's sister, and it's called Imaginable. And it's talking about she has this academy called, oh, I forget the name right now, but they come together and they put out future models to imagine. And they've oftentimes predicted many things that have come to pass. And one of them is experiential based learning. Project based learning is, it's, she doesn't call it project based learning, but it's the idea, instead of majors, people are going to sign up for what is a project that you want to solve long term. And you learn that. And one of the ideas of finding purpose in your life and in your work is aligning what you're doing with who you are. And being a purpose, which you call it, doing something.
So now your audio is a bit shaky, Marcus.
For how long?
Yeah, now it's better. It seems. Go
Okay.
again.
Okay. I'll
Yeah, yeah, you're fully back
okay.
now. Fully back.
I'll monitor my.
Yeah.
Um.
So yeah, no, I got the point, right? Aligning who we are with what we do, project-based learning, definitely very interesting, and I can see that being the future for sure.
Well,
You know.
this is the funny thing. Ryan Holiday's perennial classic, right? How to write a perennial. I forget the name of it, but the whole idea is write to the human spirit. The human spirit doesn't change. Like the way we do things, the humanities will always stay the same, even though the rules may change and the game may change. And but when you study that, when you study history, right, you will find the patterns. And yeah, that's what we're going to explore together. Today we're studying, not studying, we're looking at um, when friends part ways. 2 chapters ago, we talked about when Professor Amar left. He left the institute. He said, I don't align with this. It was of his own choice. He made this decision. The teenagers, they're not teenagers, they're young adults, early 20s. They don't have life experience, they're trying to figure it out. The three of them, Rosie, Kenna, and Alex. Next chapter, we have Dean and his wife and his daughter. And now we have Alex feeling the pressure of this, and the three of them just having different priorities. And it all comes to head with confrontation. Um, Anything else you want to set up with the scene, Mark?
Yeah, I just want to say that, Professor Amar leaving had a big impact on these three students that were taking the lead on the salons and organizing these conversation, these dialogues with fellow students because he was their champion, right? He was the one that sort of gave them the green light to go ahead and was backing them and was inspiring them. And so they had this sense that, we can only really do this if we have the support of Professor Amar. And if Professor Amar is leaving out of, he's choosing to leave and to move on, then, we feel let down, right? And we feel um, like this whole thing is not going to work anymore. That's their initial reaction. And I think Alex is the one that takes it sort of to an extreme, right? Who um, he starts to blame, for example, the administration of the university and says, yeah, if they don't even can't even get behind this, then what's the purpose even, of doing this, right? I'm out, right? He's just like kind of giving up and saying, you know, we can't, we have no chance of changing things from the inside out. Kenna and Rosie are taking it a little bit more, I guess, constructively, maybe. But this chapter really shows how something breaks in that relationship, and Alex has this kind of anger reaction to it, which at first seems quite surprising because he's always been sort of easygoing and flowing along with things. But this, we get a sense there's something in him that has been hurt, right? That's been touched, and you know we don't know what that is. We do find out later in the book, But yeah, that's something I think that this chapter is about, is like a breaking apart. And the message is you need to stand on your own 2 feet, right? You can, the mentor will come, give you what you need for a certain period of time, and then they will also move on, and they'll move on, and it's a sign that you're ready. You're ready to take this forward. You don't need necessarily somebody to give you the green light and to say, I'm here to support you. That you're ready to stand and follow, what needs to be done.
You know, so many things there. One, we didn't talk about this in the pre-show, but I want to see how it lands with you. In the work that I do when working with parents, and what I believe about the home and the family and just society, the yin yang of the energies of, how do I put this? There's maternal energy, which is nurturing and it brings close in love. And I believe there's paternal energy, which pushes away in love. And it helps the person see your sovereignty, or like your ability to be fully whole as a creator. I'm here still loving you and I
Mm.
support you from afar.
Yeah.
And that's what mentors do, that's what parents do, that's what teachers do. They cultivate something within you to understand that when we separate, it's funny, they say parents, doctors, and teachers, if you do your job well enough, those whom you serve will not need you.
Hmm.
And ideally, that's what we're growing
Beautiful.
towards, right?
Yeah.
Now, here with Alex, when he sees this, yeah, he wants to break away in anger. But you're right, he starts blaming and complaining, and he feels he has no agency to. It's two things as a Stoic we do: is we accept and we take action. He's not
Hmm.
accepting it. He's taking action, but it's rash action that's not rational. I
Hmm.
think Rosie is still curious about it. She's curious as to where this anger is coming from. Um, and you said something there. You said, he was hurt as a kid or something. I think you never really see a true character unless there's conflict. I don't know how you feel about that, because we've had conversations about that. But you really, Mike Tyson says everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth, right? You really see what a person is made of when things don't go their way, which I think
Hmm.
is part of human development. But the second thing is, um, he hasn't processed it yet. So something happened to him that and when I mean process, he hasn't made sense of. He hasn't made sense of how to lose. I I wonder if Kenna, the reason he's able to accept this more so is because he's lost several times up until now. But I mean, he's he's learned how to ride the wave.
Hmm.
Where do you
I
think
think so.
Kenna's?
Yeah, I do think, because we know from Alex that he comes from a wealthy background, and that things have come quite easily for him, right? And it doesn't mean that he's had an easy life,
Hmm.
but that he hasn't maybe had to fight very hard to get to where he is. And yeah, I think that we'll find that out in the next couple chapters. But I do think that with Kenna and his backstory, and how what we know about his father, and how he really had to work very hard, and that it's a real privilege for his son Kenna to be able to study in Switzerland, and to have this opportunity. That maybe he deals better with setbacks, right? Or he doesn't take them as personally.
Mm,
And I feel like that's what's happening with Alex. There's a bit of taking it personally, right?
mm.
I invested my time and my energy and my effort, and we're trying to do the right thing, and we're just getting pushed back. We're not getting support. So, you know, whatever. I'm
No,
out.
and more than just personally, he's also taking it as a, I don't think it's a status thing, but he's like, the university does not value this, the work that we're doing.
Mm.
So why do work that's not valued by somebody else? Like there's
Hmm.
no internal intrinsic value in it.
Hmm.
Um, it's interesting, right? So this is called separation as an act of love. I every every character has their struggle to go through. And when I say character, everybody in life, every person, we just go through those different struggles at different times. And that's what I'm realizing while going through this chapter now. And it's how are you gracious to another person to give them space to go through their struggle, let them have their dignity, while you set up your proper boundaries of saying, this is what I'll do. Because Kenna and Rosie are just like, we know what we're going to do. And we allow you to do what you got to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
We have one of the being attitudes that we work
Okay.
with being at full potential. There's 8 being attitudes, and one of them is altering our relationship to adversity.
Okay. Tell me
And
about that.
it's really the idea that in every adversity there's actually something is breaking down so that something new can come through. And it
Mm.
is an attitude, right? It is a mindset that we when we feel kind of the world is against me, something is not happening the way I want to, something is breaking down, that we can quite quickly then switch into a mindset of like, what is trying, with a question of what is trying to come through here, right? So it is a sort of an active switch that we have the capacity to take in any moment. Say, what new thing is coming through? What new opportunity is coming through here? And I feel like that takes maturity, right? It takes a certain amount of wisdom to be able to activate that type of attitude. And this is where I feel like the 3 friends are, you know, kind of going through that process right now, and learning. And I think Amar is demonstrating, that yes, this time at the university has come to an end, but he was already somehow connected with something beyond that. There was something else calling him, and he was tapping into that, and therefore there was a certain lightness for him to let go. Right? It was really coming from a place of love. It was coming from a place of not wanting to leave something because it wasn't working, but wanting to move forward to something that he felt he was being called to, drawn to. Whereas I feel like this is different. There's just more, something's not working, and it's not fair, and it shouldn't be like this, right? That's sort of the moment that we are at the, and this is actually interesting because it's the end of part 2 of the book, right? Of the 3 parts, this is the last chapter of part 2. And I think part 3 is where the flow starts to come again, and the 3 friends, start to go through this process of altering their relationship to that adversity. Oh, now your audio is off for me.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm back.
Yep.
Back, right? Yeah.
Yep.
I was saying it's this is not spoilers, but the friend group does not come back together on the salons. Um, and there's an understanding behind it. This is reflective of adolescence. Adolescence goes up to 24, actually, 24 years old. And it's just because they've not had that life experience. This is why at early adolescence, when you start to break away and individuate from your parents, it feels like some people say it feels like they don't love you. Where it's just like parents are just going through life doing what they do. They're lifing. Some parents don't communicate that love, and that's a whole nother issue. But they still love you, but in that separation of, hey, I needed you to be an individual, It's misinterpreted. It's misunderstood. Um, I think Alex is misunderstanding it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Let's look at this quote, and then we have 10 more minutes.
Yep.
Yeah, sometimes growth means letting go, just like pruning.
Would you say sometimes or always?
Uh, I, I would say sometimes, because sometimes growth means holding on. And what that
Okay.
means is love is a choice. And there are times when you know, there's this quote about parenting. It says, it is not fun, yet it's the most fulfilling thing. Like there's no joy in, or how to say it? It's not fun, but it's joyous or something to that effect. It's
Mm-hmm.
meaningful.
Yeah.
And the reason I think it is, it's because you're choosing to hold on to something that is draining you, that is pulling you down. And yes, it is an attitude shift because you see it is part of you. And you are literally giving your life force to this. So sometimes growth does mean holding on. Sometimes growth means letting go.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you make that choice from an internal place. Sometimes that choice is made for you by God has sent us nothing but angels. And I think anything that happens to you in life,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, how's it for you?
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Holding on. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because sometimes it can feel like it's easier to let go, right? To let go if things aren't working out exactly the way we wanted them to or expected them to, then okay, let's just let it go and move on to something else. But actually, it takes a lot of courage to hold on to something, even when it's not flowing the way we want it to. But we hold on to it because we believe in it, and it's important to us. And
Good.
and growth happens in that too, for sure.
I'm glad you brought up that point because why would you hold on to something if it's not what I can't say it correctly right now, but the reason you hold on to something leading to growth, even if it's not what you want, it's because it is what you want. You want that eventual end result.
Hmm.
There are moments and times in conflict where you want the final result, but the collaborator that you have, you don't want it by the same way or the same means. And
Hmm.
that creates friction.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you hold on to the work because you have a shared vision of where you're going,
Hmm.
even though the way or the means and the reason why are not aligned.
Hmm.
And that's why as a creator, you always ask yourself, what do I want? And if you want to grow, then it's like, okay, this is what has been given to me to grow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's how you make sure you don't lose your sovereignty in your choice also.
yeah.
Yeah. This is our last question. We have 8 minutes. Think about a time when you had to choose between continuing a meaningful group project or focus on your own personal priorities. How did you navigate that decision, and what did you learn about yourself in the process? As we answer that question, I just want to take a moment and a break to say, yeah, if you want to check out this book for university students, high school students, if you're an educator, it's called Coming Home to Who You Are, looking at inner development, education re-enlightened. Um, this is, I always say books are to open up conversations, and this is a conversation of our time. Very poignant. So, oh, if you want to download the book, you can scan the QR code, or you can go to being at full potential / coming home, and you'll find a form where you can get an advanced reader copy. All right.
Thank you, Marcus.
Wonderful, wonderful,
You're
Mark.
getting very good at this. Yeah.
I, you know, when you look at your first one and you so cringe, it's not even cringe. It's just like that was part of the path. Yeah,
Yeah. And you hold on to it. You hold on to it.
yeah, heck yeah, heck yeah,
Okay.
heck yeah. You gotta
That's a
remember
good example, actually, of holding on, right? When you try
what's
something
that.
new, like live LinkedIn lives, it's like, ugh, I don't know how to do this. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. Doesn't sound right. And then you just hold on to it and you keep doing it because there's joy in it, and there's purpose in it, there's meaning in it, and somehow it does start to feel easier and it flows, and it comes through more naturally. And so
Yeah.
I think this is a good example of holding on to something, right? When it would be easy to let go and say, it was good effort, but let's move on to something else.
I I've committed to 30 days and I've not hit publish 30 times. I'm still doing my writing and I've fallen back, but yeah, when you commit to finishing something, you finish it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Even with its and actually that brings us back to this idea. Is there any particular project or something you'd want to share that this brings to mind? Because we talked about something else personal with us, unless you want to shift into that.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's two different things. One is just time management, right? When you get to a point when I get to a point where I feel really stretched, then I have to go and say, okay, there's some things, even if I'm really enjoying it and I like the collaborative effort and I can see kind of the why in what I'm doing, I need to let it go, right? And I need to focus on some of the bigger priorities that I have right now. So sometimes it's really just a decision that comes from a constraint in time, and other times it comes from a disconnect in the energy. And I find that a lot of projects get started where there's super alignment on what we want to do, right? We come together and it's very clear and we have a very shared common purpose. And then as you get going, you realize that the how, the execution of it, and at the energetic level, something is not quite
Hmm.
feeling right. And it's much more difficult to identify, to put your finger onto. But I feel like I'm getting better at that, at being able to identify it and then being able to bring it up and just acknowledge it, and say, I just accept it, right? And those can then also be moments where, we would decide to discontinue a certain project and refocus on the things that are feeling aligned energetically, and that's something I do pay a lot more attention to in the last couple of years.
That's good. That's good.
Mm.
Discernment is the character trait that comes to mind. The ability to look at something and not say if it's right or wrong, but just what is this and is it
Mm.
aligned? And then the courage to speak to it. Um, I'm thinking about this between continuing meaningful group projects or focus on personal priorities. When doing the inner development survey, I remember you got the feedback that a lot of times there's mistrust between different nationalities or different regions,
Mm-hmm.
people working
Mm-hmm.
together.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always thought about that. And what we call mistrust, I think, comes from value alignment, what's important. And because sometimes we look at priorities, but it's like priorities come from what's important to that person. What's and sometimes what's important to you is not what's important to me. And because of that, we bring up this story of mistrust. The reason I'm bringing that up is because I think we have to develop a level of trust within ourselves to make space for other people holding different values.
Can you give an example, Marcus?
Um, if if I was committed to show up at this time and I show up at this time. Like, I trust myself to do what I'm going to say, even if this person holds a different value of time.
Okay.
Oftentimes, working with um, people who don't have clocks in the Western world, like clocks are very important. Coming from Switzerland, you know this, being Swiss.
Yeah.
And German precision. It's just, yeah. But then when you grow up where, not when you grow up, but in places where the sun is the dial, it's like when the sun is about here, we come together. So my point being is, when you trust yourself to be all right, when other people don't share the same values, and that's I think what Kenna does here, without saying
Mm.
it or without like having that inner trusting yourself of saying, okay, this is not going right, but you know what? I'm secure here because I know this is going to be all right.
Yeah.
You don't feel threatened by the collaboration breaking down, and then
Yeah.
that gives you the courage to speak to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And I think that comes through in this chapter very nicely, that he does take it with respect, and he doesn't try to, change Alex's mind or convince him or anything. There's a level of acceptance there. And I think that does come from, yeah, a certain amount of trust that has been built within Kenna, right? And he knows that this is important to him, that he will continue with or without the support of Alex. Um, so yeah, yeah,
we're we're closing up at the moment, but
yeah,
I just want to point out that I love that Kenna now is a more active character. He has faced many obstacles as to why not to do these salons, and yet he
yeah,
chooses to again and again and again and again.
yeah.
And actually, yeah, I'll applaud Kenna. All right, for those watching,
Great.
this is Coming Home to Who You Are. We're walking through speaking about our book, uh, Mark van den Einden. That's it, right?
Very well said. Yeah, my goodness. Yeah, yeah, it's a
If you want to
mouthful.
get a copy, you can scan the QR code or go to Being at Full Potential / Coming Home. And we'll see you next week.
Wonderful.
Anything?
Thanks so much, Marcus. Thanks,
My pleasure.
everyone. See you next Friday.
Peace.
Bye.
Be beautiful where you are.